Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon. As introduced, my name is Gabriel Bangura. I am a legal communications and publications fellow at the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, IHRDA. Aside my work at IHRDA, I'm also an African Union youth volunteer, serving as a communications officer for the African Union Mechanism for Police Cooperation, AFRIPOL, based in Algeria. So for the purpose of this session, we're primarily going to be looking at international legal frameworks on extrajudicial killing and enforced disappearances, with the hope of finding answers to some of these questions. To begin with, what is extrajudicial killing? Why the phrase extrajudicial? Also, what is enforced disappearance? Why enforced disappearance? And having understood what these concepts are, why are they human rights violations? And if they are human rights violations, what international instruments are available in seeking redress for these issues? We'll also be looking at what states can do to protect against these violations, and also what you as an individual can do. So I trust that this will be an interactive and fruitful session. If you have questions at any point in time, please do not hesitate to bring it to my attention. And if for whatever reason there is a question that is above my current level of expertise, I'll be sure to consult with the senior legal officers in the building. So at the end of the day, it is my hope and that of the organizers that you gain a better understanding. My colleague Ngone has already laid a good foundation. You gain a better understanding of what enforced disappearance is and extrajudicial killing, and what mechanisms are available at the international level. And also you'll be able to join a community of human rights defenders who are not just passionate in the protection and litigation against these issues, but are also taking concrete and active steps to ensure that both state actors and non-state actors alike move from human wrongs to human rights, and that these rights are no longer a far-fetched reality, especially for us here in Africa. With that in mind, I'm going to be starting with a 2-minute clip just as a way of appetizer, and then we'll continue from there.
خليكي ساكتة، لا تعيطي ولا لحد خلينا نتحرك يلا. أهلا وسهلا فيكي بالموصل.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khadija Young. I'm the Iraqi Bureau Chief for ITP Europe. My contact is Lisa Miller in the London office. Her information is on this ID. I'm a journalist. Under Article 4 and Article 79 of the Geneva Convention, you cannot touch me. This soldier is unconscious. He needs medical attention. I'm Muslim, sir. I am Muslim. Please. Just tell me what you want to know. What do you want to know? Just ask me something. Ask me something. My name is Khadija Young. I'm the foreign correspondent for ITC News. My address is 1420. Please. I'll talk to you. I'll tell you anything you want to know, please. Please don't leave me there, please.
Indeed, stop enforced disappearance and extrajudicial killing. But to begin, what is extrajudicial killing in the first place? Let me see. I wish there was a way to hide this without you guys having to see. Okay, so what is extrajudicial killing in the first place? Like I said, I want this to be as interactive as possible so we don't doze off in the course of my presentation. Do we have any takers in the room? Extrajudicial killing. Oh, you've read. Okay, so just pretend as though you didn't read. Wow, you have such a photographic memory. Okay, someone else who has not seen.
You've all seen.
You've all seen. Wow, I was late. Okay, well, beyond what I have there, what is your own understanding of extrajudicial killing? Any takers?
Yeah, from what I understood from the same.
Hey, you're still referring to mine. Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that these are killings that have not gone through the judicial procedures.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's expedient killing is forceful killing actually without any judicial procedure. Maybe it not go through the courts. Courts recommend or either disagree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I disagree with you, sir, because from what I learned, okay, I need to just a minute. From what I learned is the word extra means surplus, right? So extra chips means I want more chips. So why is it that extrajudicial does not mean extrajudicial process? Why does it mean otherwise?
No, what I meant is that these are mass killings that happen without a verdict being given to the court.
Okay, I understand you. Yes, sir.
It may have undergone through court processes.
Okay.
But this is disregarding or regardless of whatever the court decides.
Okay.
Things that disregard legal decisions.
Okay.
Court decisions.
Okay, thank you. Anita?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm not sure, is it like the state or help from the state or request from the state? That is when extrajudicial killings happen, not like when an individual kills without a verdict from this, when like a state or parties to the state or an instruction from the state itself, not like just killing randomly without any form.
So in essence, it's different from murder, as Ngone was explaining in the first presentation.
That is what I'm trying to say, that I'm not quite sure. If
Okay.
because I'm hearing like what they were explaining, they just said that this is when killings happen when it hasn't gone through maybe a verdict from the court or something that has not gone through a legal proceeding. So my point is, it is actually, is it when or should it be state ordering to kill, or it is being done by the state or held by the state or parties with the state, something like that. So
I understand you. Any other takers? Yes, sir. Yes, I'm hearing you, please.
It's a form of killing
Yeah.
that involves either the state or maybe a gang or a set of people that have a hand with the state
Okay.
that has caused some death. Yes.
Okay.
To certain people.
Okay.
It must involve either the state or people who know that they are working with the state.
Okay.
Either the state apparatus or people working with the state
Okay.
cause some killings.
Okay. Mr. Jowney, I saw your hand up. Oh,
I think it's just state-sanctioned killings without any judicial backups.
that is true. And in essence, you're all correct. You're all right. So the standard definition of extrajudicial killing is a deliberated killing not authorized by a previous judgment pronounced by a regularly constituted court, affording all the judicial guarantees which are recognized as indispensable by civilized peoples. Now, forget about the latter part of the definition. The latter part of the definition is just qualifying the court. So it's a modifier for what the court is. So the main definition is from here: extrajudicial killing is defined as a deliberated killing not authorized by a previous judgment pronounced by a regularly constituted court. That's where it ends. Now, we're trying to define what that court is. So, for instance, we all remember during the former regime where we had mercenary judges. So, let's say, for instance, the former president had ordered a particular judge to give a judgment, a verdict of a particular case in a way that he wants it. So at the end of the day, does that still fall as a legitimate court? So what this definition is trying to say that the court, of course, with the independence of the court, must be a regularly constituted court that offers all the judicial guarantees which are recognized as indispensable by civilized peoples. Is that understood? So in essence, judicial killing, as we all said, is just killing outside of the legal system. So an individual has committed a misdemeanor or a criminal offense, and the process of convicting him was not done through the regular judicial process. So that amounts to extrajudicial killing. We'll be looking more into it as we move forward. Then the next thing we're looking at is enforced disappearance. Yes, here was smart enough to do this. So any takers, what is enforced disappearance? Don't be shy. Okay.
Disappearance fueled by the state.
Disappearance fueled by the state. When you say the state, who is the state? What do you mean by the state?
The government. Or the state apparatus.
Oh, okay. Okay. Any other?
Actually, if I come in this particular question, is the fact that these are disappearances that happens to people without their consent, and it's mostly enforced by authorities. I mean, government.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what if I am the son of the president? I'm not particularly a government official. I'm the son of a president, and I just don't like this man's shirt. So I tell my security intel, please just arrest this man and keep him away. Does that still amount to enforced disappearance? I'm not in the government. I'm just the president's son. Sorry?
Your father is the president.
Yes, but...
And your father is the head of the government.
Yeah, but I didn't...
Whatever you do is because of the influence of your father who has power.
Oh, I think that is a stretch.
No, you're acting on your father, your subordinates.
Okay.
Subordinates.
Thank you.
Obviously, as of that time, you have an authority on that.
So because my subordinates are government officials,
yes,
so that qualifies.
Yes, no. What I mean is,
okay.
The only you have your subordinates, your security is by you.
Okay.
So the fact that you are provided with that security,
okay,
you have an authority. You have some form of an authority on those particular people that secure your whatever life. So it's equally. We wouldn't say it that but it's indirectly. It's by the state because your father is the head of state.
I understand you. Any takers? This side has been particularly quiet. Okay, yeah.
Yes, I mean like enforced disappearance. This entails when a particular person has been arrested either by the state directly or indirectly, and the person is nowhere to be seen, and the state is not ready to explain as to what is happening to that person and not allowing people access to that person.
Wait, what do you have in front of you? Do you have a copy of my notes there?
No.
You don't? You sure? Because he just read verbatim what I have here. So let's look at this. According to the UN Convention, it says enforced disappearance is the arrest, detention, abduction, or any other form of deprivation of liberty by agents of the state or by persons or groups of persons acting with the authorization, one, support, or acquiescence. So whatever way I'm acquainted to the government, it also qualifies. So I'm the son of the president or acquiescence of the state. That is one. Then it is followed by a refusal to acknowledge the deprivation of liberty or by concealment of the fate or whereabouts of the disappeared person, which places such a person outside the protection of the law. So it all qualifies. It's taken by the state, even if it's not the state. Let's say I'm merely acquainted to a government official, or I'm merely acquainted to an agency of the state. But as long as that acquaintance is there, or I am an agent of the state, it also qualifies. And it's not just that. like he said, after that has happened, then the government refused, so denies, oh no, we don't know of this man, we've never seen him, we don't know anything of him, and the state also conceals the whereabouts of the said individual. It all constitutes as enforced disappearance. We're going to be looking at this. This is the case of Musa Tabakoto, and I hope we'll be able to discuss this within 7 minutes. I'll read it out for the benefit of those who can't see clearly. On Monday, 31st May 2016, at 4:50 p.m., Musa Tabakoto, a Latrikundan citizen who has secretly been working as a spy for a foreign power, the Federal Republic of Brufut, was arrested by one Babukar Manjai, an officer of the Latrikunda Armed Forces, LAF, on charges of espionage as directed by a general of LAF. Now, prior to the arrest, Babukar had been dishonorably discharged. Sorry? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So prior to the arrest, Babukar had been dishonorably discharged from the force with all his powers stripped off him as a member of LAF, effective 31st May at 4:55 p.m. After the arrest of Musa Tabakoto, the Directorate of Information and Communications at LAF, DIC LAF, held a press conference acknowledging the arrest of Musa, but failed to disclose where Musa was being held. Now, it has been 5 years since the arrest and detention of Musa Tabakoto. Although each year, the DIC Lab, that's the Directorate of Information and Communication at the Latrikunda Armed Forces, acknowledges the arrest and detention of Musa Tabakoto in their annual briefings. None of his family members have seen him, neither has his lawyer been allowed access to him. So, kindly advise the family of Musa Tabakoto if the case of Musa qualifies as a case of enforced disappearance based on international human rights law. Any takers? Or we want to read it again?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, please go ahead.
Yes. And I say, kindly advise the family of Musa Tabakoto if the case of Musa qualifies as a case of enforced disappearance based on international human rights law. Yeah, like if you look at the previous article that we look at, one, the government has acknowledged of arresting Musa, and they are regularly discussing these things in their briefing. But Musa is denied, even his lawyer is denied access to Musa, and then the family is not aware of his case. Then under international law, Musa is an enforced disappearance.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone with a dissenting opinion or similar opinion? Are we still reading the case?
Well, I think for the fact that they acknowledge the arrest of Musa,
Okay.
that alone qualifies to say that the government or the state definitely knows something about his whereabouts.
Yeah, but then in the previous hearing convention, we read that when the government fails to acknowledge, so here they're acknowledging, they're not denying it. They say, oh yes, we took Musa. we actually took Musa, and in fact, not just that, every year for the past 5 years in their annual briefings, they say, yes, we took Musa, Musa is with us, he is safe and healthy, but we cannot tell you where he is. But Musa is with us. They've been doing that every year.
I'm lucky that this Musa lives in Tabokoro.
No. That's his name. That's his name. Oh, okay. That's his name. His name is Musa Tabakoto.
Yes, I'm
Musa Tabakoto. Yeah. Okay.
He's also Musa.
Oh, you're also Musa. Oh.
not Tabokoro.
Okay, I see.
I'm the victim in this case.
Okay. Yes, sir.
But Musa,
Yeah.
while it is a case of enforced disappearance, because what happens? Musa, one, he does not have access to his. Number two, Musa is not given any court proceeding or to say that he is given liberty to speak to his relatives or to his acquaintances. So Musa is just been taken and nowhere knows where Musa is. It's only the state that is talking about him.
Okay.
Yes. So Musa's right has been abused because he has nowhere to at least anchor or let's say put himself to make sure that they know whether he is still living or not.
Oh, okay. Okay, but none of us have addressed this fact. We noticed he was arrested by Babukar. And Babukar had been dishonorably discharged. And you see, it's the same date. You see the date? He was arrested on the 31st of May 2016 at 4:50.
Yeah.
And Babukar was dishonorably discharged, effective the same day at 4:55. That's just 5 minutes later. So is Babukar still an agent of the state?
Yes, at the time of the arrest, he was.
It's 5 minutes. It's literally the same.
But he was at the time of the arrest. He was an agent of the state. So Musa is still a case of enforced disappearances because he's denied access to his lawyers.
Yeah.
He's denied access to see his family.
Yeah.
And there's no due procedure. He's been kept over time for more than 72 hours. 72 hours.
72 hours.
He's not gone through the court process. So and nobody really knows except the state, who claim to say that he's still in their custody, which nobody knows if it's true or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in public record.
Okay, thank you. Anybody with a different opinion? So we all think this qualifies? We all think? Okay, you're all absolutely right. Because if we look at this, there are 4 main components of enforced disappearance. So first, we're talking about deprivation of liberty. Musa was taken against his will and he's been held for 5 years.
Yeah.
That's fulfilled. And secondly, by or with support or acquiescence of a state agent, by Babukar, even though he was dishonorably discharged and it was effective 5 minutes later, but at the exact moment he arrested Musa, he was still an agent of the state. So that qualifies. And then a refusal to acknowledge that deprivation of liberty. Now, this is the only part that the state got right, or the loophole here. They have acknowledged, but then even at that, they've concealed the fate of the whereabouts of the disappeared person that places him outside the protection of the law. So in essence, what I'm trying to bring out from this case study is that these requirements need not be fulfilled altogether holistically. The mere fact that 2 or 3 of them have been fulfilled or qualifies suffices as a case of enforced disappearance. I hope that is understood.
Yes.
Okay, good. So now we're going to be moving. Initially we said we've already given the definition of what enforced disappearance is, what extrajudicial killing is. Now, why are they human rights violations? So we are going to be looking at the rights that are involved and where under international legal instruments these rights have been catered for. So the first right we're looking at under enforced disappearance and extrajudicial killing is the right to life. Of course, if somebody is taken away, there's a threat to his right to life. The second is the right to be free from torture and other cruel, inhumane, or degrading punishments, treatment, or punishment. The third one is the right to liberty and security of person. And the final is the right to fair trial. That is the right to an effective remedy, judicial remedy. So in the next minutes, we're going to be looking at each of those rights. I hope there is enough time, and then we'll see where under international law, these rights have been provided for, both regional and international human rights law. The first one is the right to life. What do we understand by the right to life? The African Charter on the Human and People's Rights helps us with this. It says, human beings are inviolable. Every human being shall be entitled to respect for his life and the integrity of his person. No one may be arbitrarily deprived of this right. We move on to international legal framework protecting this right. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 3. It says everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. That's the UDHR. We also move forward to the ICCPR, that's the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It says every human being has the right to life. This right shall be protected by law. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his life. But even here, I'm still not satisfied. The right to life itself is not defined. So does it mean that the failure of the state to acknowledge that someone has the right to life means the person does not have the right to life? Come on, guys, I said this would be interactive. Help me out here. So if the government comes out and says, Mr. Modu, you do not have the right to life, does that mean you don't have the right to life?
No.
Why is that?
Yeah, because this right to life is a different one.
By who?
Since as
We have only our right.
life,
It's
as
divine.
we are human beings, as human beings, We are born to live.
Good.
We are born to live. And there is no way that life can be taken out of us illegally.
You're completely right. That's why the African Charter made reference to it. It says every human being is entitled to the respect for his life. No one may be arbitrarily deprived of this right. It's the ICCPR. It says every human being has the inherent right to life. So it's inherent, it's innate. From the moment you are born, you have the right to life. In fact, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights have gone further to expatiate on this right, and they've said in their general comment number 3 on this right, they've said that the right to life is not merely the right to existence. You know, there's a difference between living and existence. Yes. So it's not, sorry, sir?
It's not bargaining.
Exactly. It's not bargaining, and it's not just merely existence. So they've placed a greater onus on the state that the state, in fact, has the obligation in fulfilling this right to create a conducive living environment for every individual. So if the government of the Gambia, you have a question?
No, I was just going to use the word that I was going to borrow the word very valuable.
Exactly, invaluable. Yes.
Once you cannot value it, it means it has, you cannot really define life itself.
Oh, okay.
It's so important that you cannot value it. That's what he said.
Oh, okay.
That's why the state itself has to understand that this is something that's time.
True.
By
Good.
So that you cannot value it because you have no contribution to the existence of that person.
That is true. That is true. So as I was saying, the commission said that the state has the obligation to create the environment. So the government of the Gambia cannot put me at risk. If they put me at risk of losing my life, maybe during the course of my transit from my house to my working place or something, the government of the Gambia can be held responsible for violating this. So it's not merely saying, oh, okay, this is Gabriel, leave him, let him be. But they also have an extra obligation to ensure that they create the enabling environment for me to live. Moving forward, we also have the right to be free from torture and cruel, inhumane, or degrading punishment. Now, under regional international human rights law, we have also the African Charter, which is our go-to point for regional human rights instrument. Article 5 of the Charter says every individual shall have the right to the respect of the dignity inherent in a human being and to the recognition of his legal status. All forms of exploitation and degradation of man, particularly slavery, slave trade, torture, cruel, inhuman, or degrading punishment and treatment shall be prohibited. We move forward to look at the international legal framework. We have the UN Convention. There's an entire convention on torture and the prevention of cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. We also have Article 7 of the ICCPR, and it says, it's more elaborate than the Charter. It says, 1, no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, or subjected without his free consent to medical or scientific experimentation. COVID-19 vaccine. Yeah, you see?
Yeah, some people are taking like guinea pigs.
Okay, that's a gray area. I'm really careful not for us not to start that conversation here. but you see, it's protected. It's protected here. It says no one shall be subjected without his free consent to medical or scientific experimentation. It goes further. We have Article 6 of the UDHR. It says no one shall be subjected to torture or cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. That is all on that right. The third right that we have is the right to liberty and security of person. Now, what is the regional legal framework available? We also have Article 6 of the African Charter. And this is what it says. Every individual shall have the right to liberty and to the security of his person. No one shall be deprived of his freedom, except for reasons and conditions previously laid down by law. In particular, no one may be arbitrarily arrested or detained. Moving on. International legal framework. We have Article 9 of the ICCPR. And as always, the ICCPR is very elaborate. Sub 1 says, everyone has the right to liberty and security of person. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest or detention. No one shall be deprived of his liberty except on such grounds and in accordance with such procedure as are established by law. Sub 2 says, anyone who is arrested shall be informed, 1, at the time of arrest, of the reasons for his arrest and shall be promptly informed of any charges, against him. Any thoughts on this?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
For example, if you have rebels who have come to overthrow a particular government, let's say a legitimate government, and in the process of, let's say, overthrowing, they are caught. And maybe because of the soldiers were angry at that time and they happened to kill them, should they be held responsible for killing them?
For killing the other soldiers?
Yeah, I mean the rebels, for example.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anyone want to answer before I comment? Okay, sir. Sorry, before he does, it seems like we have only 3 active people here. Should I start pointing? Let's do like classroom. Let's contribute, guys. Okay, sir, please carry on.
Yes, they should be held responsible.
Why is that?
Like the rebels, the soldiers, they should be held responsible for killing them. Because at that point in time, after arresting them, because you said arrest,
Yes.
meaning those people are arrested. Because somebody who arrests that individual is arrested. So at that very point in time, when the person is arrested, automatically the life of that person becomes paramount. You cannot kill that person without going through due process. The court of law.
Okay.
That's my.
Yes.
Thank you for that, sir.
You are seeking their rights to defense. You should take them to court. Right to defense and for the court of the courts. So if you just arrest them because they want to rebel, you kill them, that is not the law. You take them to court. And if you don't, if you kill them, you have seized their right to seize their right to life and defense.
You are absolutely right. In fact, I want you to keep that thought because we have the right to fair trial. And I think your question fits better under the right to fair trial. If I remember when we get there, then we'll address it. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. So moving on, we've already read what Sub 1 and Sub 2 says. Then we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights under Article 3 and Article 9. It says everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. 9 says no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. Now, it may seem that these are just, how do I put this? It's just written law. It's just, okay, provisions. But it's not just that. These have both persuasive precedents and binding precedents. So these are a set of regulations that if peradventure any of these atrocities happen, that's 1, extrajudicial killing and enforced disappearance. As a human rights litigator, as a human rights advocate, you can rely on these international principles, on these international conventions and law to make your case. I hope we understand. So we're not just going through this just to see where it is written, but these serve both as persuasive and binding precedents. So we're trying to give an exposure to what is available on the international level, as my colleague had already done on the Gambian context. Okay. Then moving on, we have the right to fair trial. Now, Article 7 says, every individual shall have the right to have his cause heard. That is 1. The charter is further explicit on this. It went down to give sub-provisions to explain what it means by that. So everyone, that's the basic, that's the bare minimum. So regardless of what you've done, regardless of who you are, regardless of the offense you've committed, you as an individual, you have the right to have your cause heard. Now, this is what the charter says. This comprises of A, the right to an appeal to competent national organs against act violating his fundamental right as recognized and guaranteed by conventions, laws, regulations, and customs in force. So you have the right to an appeal. The second is the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty by a competent court or tribunal. C, the right to defense, including the right to be defended by counsel of his choice. You can't impose on him. Of his choice. D, the right to be tried within a reasonable period of time by an impartial court or tribunal. The charter went further to say no one may be condemned for an act or omission which did not constitute a legally punishable offense at the time it was committed. My colleague made mention of this non-retroactivity of law. It was committed. No penalty may be inflicted for an offense for which no provision was made at the time it was committed. Punishment is personal and cannot be imposed, and can be imposed only on the offender. Not the son shall bear the sins of the father. Only on the offender. Does this answer your question now, sir? Or should we deliberate on it? You want us to still deliberate on it?
No, we can go ahead.
This is explicit enough. So regardless of what they may have done, they still have the right to have their cause heard. Is that satisfactory? You seem dissatisfied. He is dissatisfied. Let's help.
Sometimes.
Yes, sir.
Court proceedings they normally take a long period of time. And in the process of those court, the person who intends to kill happen to abscond or maybe run away. Sometimes it normally happen. And that when the person comes again, you don't know what the person will do.
Okay.
These are some of the things.
Okay. Let me ask you this question, just in response to your question. Same scenario. So this is an attempted coup. Rebels stormed the State House, trying to overthrow a democratically elected government, right?
Yes.
In the process, they were caught, apprehended, and they were all massacred, killed. So it will serve as an example to others. Now, same scenario, a group of individuals, let's say armed, they stormed the State House as well. They were attempting to steal a portrait of the president because it's been auctioned on the international market that it's worth millions and millions of dollars. So they're trying to steal the portrait of the president. That's all they wanted, not to overthrow the government, but also they were held by the soldiers and killed. So both scenarios, scenario A, coup, scenario B, robbery gone wrong.
Yeah.
Do you think both are okay?
Whatever the case, hence they are armed.
Okay, let's say they were not armed. Okay, let's say they were armed. They had knives and cutlass.
Yeah.
But then the military, the soldiers, had AK-47s, tankers, and the rest of that. They only had knives, just pocket knife and cutlass.
The mere fact that they contemplated to go and do something,
Okay.
and that they have a weapon,
Okay,
so
but
that alone is something.
I understand you, but what I'm trying to point out is, what is the benchmark on the severity of the offense? How do we grade the punishment that is fitting for one offense or the other?
The one that wants to overthrow,
Yes, sir.
that one has gone all out.
Okay, so they should be killed. We are settled on that.
Yes.
They should die.
But the one that has gone just to do robbery or steal,
Allow him, sir.
those people,
Yes, sir.
yes, they can be taken to a court of law,
No, they were not taken. They were killed there. They all attacked the State House.
and they were killed.
Yes, we don't want to know what they came to do. And how dare you attack the State House? So they were killed. They must be killed for merely attempting.
Hence, they entered the State House.
Yes, sir.
So their intentions can change.
So, but that is why they're going to court, though. It's for the court to determine if the gravity of their supposed offense, if they're supposed to if they are going for a coup or if they're going to stay, because the sentencing for theft is different from sentencing for murder or coup, because coup is what's the law term? I can't remember what the law term is.
It's a treason offense,
yeah,
treasonable offense.
Theft is theft. So if different sentences for both. So if you do not go to court to determine that, there's no way you would know what the sentences for those are.
And just
killing people innocently like that.
True. Just to add to that, that is very similar to jungle justice. We made mention of that earlier. Someone goes out to steal, and someone gave a scenario. You can't reach the police at that moment. So yes, let's put. I see now they are painting people with painting their bodies. I've been seeing that on social media.
Yeah.
So it's there just pour paint, oil paint, in fact, not even water paint. So pour oil paint, which is almost good as permanent, on his body, and then maybe let's put tire and then light him on fire. Is that deserving? Exactly. So you see, we're trying to, laws exist to prevent anarchy, because everybody has the potential of being a dictator. It is said that power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we're trying to confine the powers of both the state and individuals. So we cannot give excessive power, even if they were caught. Let's say they were caught, right-handedly, right there in the midst of the act. Still let it follow the judicial process.
Yeah.
And you may not appreciate this because it seems far-fetched. Let's say it's a close relative of yours who was involved in the same process. Will your position be different? Oh, come on, your position will be different.
Somebody who has attended my life. Regardless of who you are.
Okay. I understand that it's easy for human sentiments to get into this, but this is the position of the law. And as far as international human rights law is concerned, it is best that these are applicable. Anita? Yes.
Yeah, I was just trying to say, there have been coups without any sort of, because when the German and I don't know, AFPRC came in, they had a coup.
A bloodless coup.
Exactly. A supposed bloodless coup, and it happened. So let's say things had gone the other way around. Is it like justified what he's saying? It's like when the second attempted coup happened, when all those Barrow people were killed. Is he trying to say that is justified actually for killing those people during, was it in 1995?
Yeah.
Is that what he's trying to say?
I think what he's trying to say is that the State House is sanctimonious. You cannot, how dare you attack the State House? So that's the problem. He's not concerned about your intentions, what you did. How dare you enter the State House? So that's his problem. Yes, sir.
I think you need to throw a little light on the difference between conventional law and court-martial.
Okay.
Because normally I'm not a law person. I used to hear that people are presenting court-martial. Court-martial, that's the military.
Yes.
Military courts or whatever you do there. If that is different from the conventional law, can you feel that what he's saying to some extent makes sense to me? If there is something like court-martial, which is different from the conventional law, that normally is the normal way of taking people to court. So maybe that you need to put a little light on that. Because the court-martial may have certain extraordinary powers, to decide on certain things. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
I understand what you're saying, and to be honest with you, I can't give a clear distinction between the two. But from a surface level, what I could explain to you is that the court-martial does exist. It's a type of tribunal. It's a type of court system. But we also have the conventional court system. But you strayed slightly from his point. If I could reiterate, his point is that they should not be tried in the first place, regardless of the tribunal that they are being taken to. Whether it's a court-martial, he's saying that there is a certain legitimacy to their action in the fact that they were trying to exercise their duty in preventing these people from attacking the State House. And if I could recap, we know about the student protest, I think in 2001 or so, that happened. In 2000, exactly. So we know what happened. The students stormed the country, did a lot of damage. Soldiers came out, and we know the result of that. So in that case, should they be tried? We're not talking about the tribunal. We're not saying take them to High Court, take them to the court-martial, or take them to the ICC. What he's saying that they should not be tried because at that point in time, they were doing it in exercise of their duty. However, what we are saying here is that everybody is accountable. That is the reason why we have the TRRC process today. Although he was a National Guard, he was the head of the NIA, he was the head of the what have you, he was the president. He is still accountable for actions that he took in the course of his duty, which contravened the law.
Constitution.
Yes.
What I'm saying now is, in the point that he's trying to explain, if the coup is one about to attack the State House,
yes, sir.
The State House does to revenge.
That is where we have a problem.
And in the process of the push and pull, they overpowered them and they killed them. What would you say about that?
Okay, you see, now we're adding extra points. Yeah, we're adding jumbo and pepper to the sauce. No, we're spicing it up. That is done. Whatever the spices that we put, the garbage and all of it, at the end of the day, they are still accountable. That is there's no going around this. For the purpose of time, I think we'll move forward, except if someone else has a different opinion. Okay.
With what he said,
yes, sir.
The main point there is they were overpowered, arrested. They should be taken to court.
Why killed?
Then, but if it's at the time the action was taking place, where there is push and pull or whatever, they could be killed. It's a mistake. Anything can happen. That is yes.
Yes, but even at that, they still need to report. But it's different. You've already overpowered these guys. They came with cutlass. You're using tankers, and then after you line them up and then do a killing. That's not called for. Okay, this is the last comment, and then we'll move forward, please. Yes, sir.
You know that whatever happened, the was not independent.
When, sir?
You try to decide a particular government.
Okay. Carry on.
Not independent.
Okay.
For the past 23 years.
Okay.
And then the fact that happened, and some people were sentenced unlawfully. For the fact that somebody is up there who is dictating or directing the court to decide in the field of the party. Most of what happened may have been, through an executive order.
That is true.
And now it has changed. It has changed. Would these same people have that opportunity to claim their, the damages?
I think the TRRC process explains what is going on right now. Yes, they do. They still do. Okay, moving forward, if there are no other interventions. So we're looking at Article 7 of the Charter. That is done for a regional legal framework that protects the right to fair trial. Now we go to the ICCPR. I particularly like the ICCPR because it's very elaborate and it goes beyond what just the other conventions cater for. So sub 14 sub 1 says, all persons shall be equal before the courts and tribunals. We did not notice this particular provision in the orders. So all persons are equal, regardless of being the son of the president or being an ordinary citizen. So all persons shall be equal before the courts and tribunals. In the determination of any criminal charge against him or of his rights and obligations in a suit of law, everyone shall be entitled to a fair and public hearing by a competent, independent, independent and impartial tribunal established by law. The press and the public may be excluded from all or part of a trial for reasons of morals, public order or the republic, or national security in a democratic society, or when the arrest of the private lives of the parties so requires, or to the extent strictly necessary in the opinion of the court in special circumstances where publicity will prejudice the interest of justice. It goes further to say, no, but only judgment rendered in a criminal case or in a suit at law shall be made public except when the interest of a juvenile person otherwise requires, or the proceedings concerns matrimonial duties or the guardianship of children. So this is more elaborate. It's saying in essence, in summary, that everyone is equal before the law, regardless of who you are, age, sex, sexual orientation, height, race, you are all equal before the law. And then it goes further to say that everyone shall be entitled to fair and public hearing. But it's saying that in certain cases we can't have public hearing. Like I know the TRRC is having closed sessions for certain victims. I know for the HIV treatment victims, they have had closed hearings. So even if it's not closed, if it's open, their faces is obscured, their voice is distorted. So it's giving those provisions where it is acceptable to have this. Moving forward, it says everyone charged with a criminal offense shall have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. We've already looked at this. And in the determination of any criminal charge against him, everyone shall be entitled to the following minimum guarantees in full equality. 1. To be informed promptly and in details in a language which he understands of the nature and cause of charge against him. You can't just walk into a room, walk into a house, bang into a house, break the door down, pick up Mr. Suleiman, take him to the police station. He's kept there for 24 hours. Nobody has spoken to him. That can't be done under international human rights law. That's why it's saying he should be informed properly why he is being arrested. It goes further to say that everyone should have adequate time and facilities for the preparation of his defense and to communicate with counsel of his own choosing. This is made a point of emphasis. The individual should have the option to choose his own counsel of defense. Should also be tried without undue delay. Arrested in 2016, not being tried till 2020. Arrested in 1994, not being tried till 2005. That should not be done. It goes further to say is to be tried in his presence and to defend himself in person or through legal assistance of his own. It also goes further to say to examine to examine or to have examined the witness against him. So all of these are there. G says not to be compelled to testify against himself or to confess guilty. It goes further to list all of this. Now, a quick question. Can torture or enforced disappearance ever be justifiable?
Never.
You guys on my screen again. Never?
No, it depends.
Okay. I like this man. Let's go, sir. It depends. Let's go. It's coming to prepare. It's coming to give us a nice soup. Okay, yeah.
Let me go back to what I was saying.
Okay.
Somebody
Comes where? State House again?
Maybe the State House.
Does this man work at the State House?
No, I'm not working. I'm not.
Okay, sir, carry on.
So I must find something to at least make it spice it up. With a weapon.
Okay.
And that the person, you know, he studied.
Yes. Where's the target?
Let's say the president.
Not necessarily. There are a lot of people at the State House. But carry on.
Yes, let's say the president, he came purposely to kill the president.
Okay.
Or they came to overthrow the government.
Okay.
And if the president, then they overthrow. And then the person is caught. At that time, you people are all annoyed.
Okay.
And that the person is caught. Maybe the person has killed maybe some of the guys before actually he's been caught.
Okay.
So when he is caught, actually the person before they can, let's say, relax their anger, the person will suffer.
Or just take reference from the law.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe they may have time to take reference from the law.
Yes.
They would act like a soldier.
Yes.
I get you. Yes, sir, please.
No, I don't think in any manner or in any way, doesn't matter what crime the person committed or is about to commit, it's justifiable to torture anyone because you think they've done something wrong.
Yeah.
That is why we have the laws. That is why you go to court. Because that's what the court is supposed to do. They're supposed to punish people to stop them from committing other crimes or for crimes that they've already committed.
Let's say if a thief happens to come and
You are not
stab
supposed
you
to
in
be
your
the
house.
thief for no matter the reason that
Okay, wait. If the person has stabbed you and you're dead, how are you torturing the person? Why are you torturing
The
the
person
person?
has come and stabbed you in your house.
That is why we have war crimes as well. There are war crimes. And there are even laws for what to do during
Okay,
war.
I know. You're absolutely right.
Came and meet you.
You're still not supposed to torture anyone.
You're absolutely right, but I think I get the perspective from where you're coming from, and I think it's slightly influenced by a lack of confidence in the judicial system. Because I hear you saying before the person goes to court. So you see, now there is reality and there is how do I put this? There is reality and there is a reality that we hope for.
Yes.
So it is true that as it is right now, or as it has been in the past, somebody does that and sentiments, human emotions, we can't control. We can't always put our emotions under control. Oh, slap, yeah, why did you do this? Waterboard and all of that. But we are saying, aside that, there is a standard that ought to be followed. That's what we're saying. We're not saying that it is not being done. We're not saying it has not been done. We're not even trying to say in the next 2 years it will no longer be done. It will be completely eradicated. But what we are saying is, as a matter of international principles, this is the standard. So we're bringing our current act into alignment with what international law provides.
But I don't think even with human sentiments.
Yes, it shouldn't be. Yes, it shouldn't be. Exactly. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So the answer is actually no. Torture cannot be.
A big no for that matter.
No, yes, I should have put an exclamation mark here. No, I'm running out of time, so please allow me to go through with this. In fact, the UN Human Rights Committee and the European Court of Human Rights have similarly found that enforced disappearance of a close family member constitutes inhumane treatment of the next of kin. You see, so they're even stretching this. So if I take your name, sir? Sang, Mr. Sang, if he's disappeared today by a state official, it is not just a violation of his right, it's also a violation of his son, of his daughter, of his wife. Exactly, the entire family. So you see, they are stretching it just beyond the individual. In fact, they've also gone further to say that Article 4 of the ICCPR acknowledges against that the prohibition of abductions and acknowledged detention were not subject to derogation. So abduction and detention, it's not, those rights are not derogable in the sense that the state cannot move back from them, regardless of the circumstance. and that includes torture. So they says the absolute nature, it's absolute. The absolute nature of these prohibitions, even in times of emergency, storming the state house, a time of emergency, is justified. So even the absolute nature of these prohibitions, even in times of emergency, justified by their status as norms of general international law. So regardless of the situation, regardless of the time, it cannot be justified. Now, moving on. This is, I think we'll just have a look at this briefly, and then we'll go to state obligations because I'm running out of time. Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to say, as a point you made about in response to him, maybe lack of trust in the judiciary. But I think beyond that, what needs to be also pointed out is to recognize the sanctity of human
life,
human life, human rights. I think at the beginning, Musa was talking about the invaluable nature of life, of the human being being inviolable, not to be violated. So, so sometimes it is, of course, all these circumstances are around, but when you look at ourselves, regardless of what I do, anywhere, anytime, I wouldn't appreciate anyone to slap me, cut my finger, so the human being, one has to appreciate the value, the dignity of the human being to the point that it's an embodiment of respect. Regardless of what a particular person at a particular place be or behaved, the human being itself is an embodiment of respect, of value that we have to uphold. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, suddenly if someone rapes my daughter, I mean, I'm so furious, I just want to kill you right there. And it's very difficult. If someone attacks me in my home, 2 a.m., you know, I may want to kill you. So it's also a part of human being nature, our nature to react in those ways.
Sure.
But I mean, maybe we just need to think deeper to realize, yes, even there, that rapist or that attacker at that time is still a human being that I need to respect that human being. That will be still part of respecting myself.
That is true, and I couldn't agree with you more. You're absolutely right. Let's take a look at this. This is the final case for today. Then we can conclude the presentation. I'll just read it for the purpose of time. You could follow along with me as I read. This is the case of Junkung Tujereng. Junkung Tujereng is a notorious criminal in the Democratic Republic of Bijilo, DRB. Over the past 10 years, he has raped several women and is single-handedly responsible for over 70% of all unwanted pregnancies in the Democratic Republic of Bijilo, according to the National Statistics Office. He's a strong man, huh? Okay, now, on January 1st, 2021, Junkung was in the Bijilo General Market, commonly known as New Land Market, when he got into a bitter argument with one Sukai Suleiman, a very attractive young woman, reputed to be one of the most curvy sellers of the New Land Market. Just picture that. Now, according to Sukai Suleiman, Junkung touched her breast when she bent over to hand him his change. Her story was corroborated by a senior judge of the High Court of DRB, the Democratic Republic of Bijilo, Miss Lady Justice, who saw the full incident with her colleague friend, also a judge of the Court of Appeal of DRB, who was at the time on a WhatsApp video call with her boss, the Chief Justice of DRB. Now, consequently, Miss Lady Justice ordered the immediate arrest of Junkung and sentenced him to 30 years imprisonment from where she stood holding a bag of fresh tomatoes. When asked on the legitimacy of her judgment, Miss Lady Justice said that there was no need going to the court as she witnessed everything. And aside, Junkung is known for this. He's a notorious criminal, and as a judge, she can issue a judgment anywhere and at any time. Now, kindly advise Junkung Tujereng if Miss Lady Justice made the right call in dealing with him based on international human rights law. This is where we may draw the curtains. Any takers?
Jungle justice.
No. How is this jungle justice?
How can somebody administer justice anytime, anywhere, anyhow?
She's the judge. She's a judge of the.
That's why
court.
a judge.
It's unofficial.
It's
unofficial judge. The fact is not the court.
That is not a courthouse.
No, but why waste the court's resources? She saw everything that happened.
What they said is, let there be evidence.
Yes, it's there.
Let there be transparency.
Let there be
a fair trial. That's not a fair trial.
Let there be evidences, let there be investigation also. People have to come, because this one did not also say anything. Because what happened is, he had to come and also say something, without allowing him to say anything, even though if at all he is a convict, but he has to say something. They must hear from him.
I hear you, but you see the first
Even
part.
though he is there,
He is responsible for 70% of unwanted pregnancies.
where he drove the content.
Okay, one at a time. Yes.
Sorry.
It is not a courthouse.
So, here we are talking about enforced appearance as linked to enforced appearance.
Yes.
Sorry, fair trial as linked to
Enforced disappearance.
But this case doesn't seem so. Of course, it talks about issue of fair trial.
Yes.
But I don't see the link with enforced appearance or extrajudicial hearing.
This one, the person has been seen doing the act. Impregnating a lot of girls, sometimes raping them, sometimes touching their breasts and whatever. But actually, where the judgment has been done, actually, you cannot do it anyhow, anywhere, anytime.
It's a preconceived judgment.
Because the person who is actually doing the judgment should do it in an organized place.
So
not just do it on the street or anywhere he feels like doing.
So going back to your earlier illustration of the State House.
Yes.
Do you have any change of heart?
No, but these are different scenarios.
Oh, okay, okay, let's move forward. That's the case of Junkum. Or does anyone have another opinion? Okay, for the purpose of time, let's move. Now, state obligation under international law. In the case of Sudan Human Rights Organization versus Cho, the African Commission said as effective gave a recommendation on state obligation. So he said first, an effective official investigation must be carried out with promptness and reasonable expedition. This is when it comes to enforced disappeared individuals. The investigation must be carried out for the purpose of securing the effective implementation of domestic laws which protect the right to life. The investigation of the results therefore must be open to public scrutiny in order to secure accountability. For an investigation into a summary execution carried out by a state agent to be effective, it may generally be regarded as necessary for the person responsible for the carrying out of the investigation to be independent from those implicated in the event. This means not a lack of hierarchical or institutional connection, but a practical independence. My institution, the Liberation Force for Enforcement of Morality in the Gambia, did atrocities in 2016. Now the TRRC is on. Does my institution, I who was the CEO, who was the director of program, can still come and conduct the investigation into acts that my institution carried out? No. That's what the commission is saying here. So there should be that independence. State has that obligation. It further goes on to say that states are not only obliged to refrain from these violations, they are also equally obliged to take concrete steps in ensuring that both state and non-state actors alike are not perpetrators of this violation. So in essence, an illegal act which violates human rights, which is initially not directly imputable to a state, for example, because it is the act of a private person, or because the person responsible has not been identified, can lead to international responsibility of the state. I hope we understand that. So the state cannot excuse itself because it was not directly involved in it. But because of lack of, so can lead to international responsibility of the state, not because of the act itself, but because of lack of due diligence to prevent the violation or to respond to it as required by convention. These are also other obligations that the state has. It's obliged to refrain from these violations, to prevent continuous violation, the prohibition of amnesties, pardons, or other similar measures which are not legitimate, the criminalization of enforced disappearance, and torture. They also have to provide forensic capacity in finding these individuals, establish registries for cases of grave human rights violations. Like today, do we have a database of all those who were enforcedly disappeared from 1994 till date? The state has an obligation to provide this. The state also has to develop a gender-sensitive policy and action plan to provide support and rehabilitation to families of forcibly disappeared persons. They also have to provide adequate protective measures, provide psychosocial support, international cooperation, and the right to know the truth. What happened? How did it happen? Where did it happen? When did it happen? They have the right to know. That is that. Now, let's look at this and then we'll draw the curtains from here because I'm running out of time. What are the guiding principles in the search for disappeared persons? 1. The search for a disappeared person should be conducted under the presumption that he or she is still alive. Because it negates effort to try to look for someone that you feel is already dead. The motivation, the inspiration to keep going on won't be there. So it has to be on the presumption that this person is alive but has been disappeared. So let us find. That way you have the zeal to continue in the search effort. Secondly, the search should respect human dignity, not just done anyhow. Human dignity for the person involved and for his family members. We move on. It says the search should be governed by a public policy, not done anyhow. It should also follow a differential approach. The search should also respect the right to participation. Do we bring in the public? Do we bring in forensic experts from private individuals? Also, the search will begin without delay. Immediately we know of this, let's start immediately, not 15, 30 years later. And also they have a search, it's a continuing obligation. So because we've searched for this individual was disappeared in 1994, and we're making progress to look for him in 2016, in 2020, does not mean that in 2040 a new government cannot still continue the effort. So it continues. And also the search will be conducted on the basis of a comprehensive strategy, not done anyhow. Number 9, the search should be taken into account the particular vulnerability of migrants, if migrants are involved. We had the Ghana case. Some of us are aware of that, what happened. So that should also be taken into account. And then the search should be organized efficiently. So are we searching from Janjambure, moving to Basse, moving to Soma? It should be organized. Also, the search should use information in an appropriate manner. Some certain information are sensitive. Some should not be disclosed to the public. That also should be taken into account. And also, it should be coordinated, not done randomly. And the search and the criminal investigation should be interrelated. So yes, we're making efforts to look for the ED EJK. Have we found him? Yes, we found the ED EJK. Then what happened to the ED EJK? Are we going to do prosecution? Are we going to take a criminal investigation afterwards? Not just finding or not finding and leaving it there. I hope that is understood. We are done. This is the last slide. I can see some people yawning. Okay, moving on. The search should be carried out safely. Safety of those who are carrying out the search. And then the search should be independent and impartial. The search should also be governed by public protocols. I know the TRRC has an act that is establishing the TRRC. That should also be taken into account. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I don't suppose there are any questions. Thank you once again. Bye.